work for you. Now let me show this. I'm going to show it to you as if you were looking over my shoulder watching this. All right? No, I'll do it my way first. Later, we'll let you look over the shoulder. But you fold, using your right hand, you fold the right-hand side of the paper over to, but not yet touching the left side of the paper. Now, as you'll be able to see here, there is actually an underlap of about 1/8 of an inch. And that's important. This underlap is what does all of the work for you. Okay? Perhaps if I use the pen, you could see that a little bit better. There you go. Do you see that underlap there? That's what does all of the work. It is not folded over flush. There's an underlap. The second thing is that underlap is folded on the outside of the paper. That is, when you fold the paper in fourths, that underlap is still on the outside, because this provides the landmark that enables you to take the folded paper, the quarter folded paper, back from your participant and to orient it in the proper position for the tear. And that's really important. Now also, when I'm ready to draw the television set on the inside, it's important to keep the alignment of the paper the same as when I began. You see the fold over here to the underlap, then on the outside. You keep the alignment exactly the same. Then, using the center of those 4 little squares that have been formed by the fold lines, and I'll dot them here. There's the center of that one, the center of that one, the center of that one, and the center of that one. Using those as your guide, you draw first the screen of the television set, because this will be essentially the section that's torn out. Then you fill in the rest with the cabinet of that clunky old Dumont or Philco or whatever you recall from your memory, or probably, given the fact that I'm approaching my middle-age years, and the rest of you are not, from Leave It to Beaver, you'll remember television sets looked just like this. Now, you'll recall in my presentation to Barbara, I asked her to think of the name of someone involved with television, game show, comedy show, talk show, but the name I would be familiar with, not the second assistant key grip on Kung Fu. And that's important. Also, by suggesting comedy show, game show, talk show, you're in essence suggesting an upfront personality as opposed to a character. The person then writes that name. I'll use her example, Dick Van Dyke. And she wrote it or printed it as instructed right there on the paper. Then I gave her this business of looking at it, and that's simply window dressing. This technique, by the way, is called Renshawing. Dr. Renshaw actually invented this technique, this technique of flashing one line at a time. Then I ask her, please refold the paper. And following my instructions, she does just that, refolding the paper. Now the information is on the inside. I ask her to hold it up to the light to make sure that there may be some marks showing through, but certainly it can't be read. Now here is the important nugget of information. If you look at all 4 corners of that paper, you have, well, this is where the 4 corners are. This is where 2 folds are. This is also a double fold. Only at this corner, right here, that's the center. That's the only thing you're concerned about. Let me ink it in so you can see it in this demo a lot more easily. There's where the important information resides. This is the time that the topology, that is the way you folded the paper, comes into play. Now you ask her to hold it at her fingertips, and you begin telling her things. By the way, no, I'll talk about that during the presentation. When you take the paper back and you're ready for the tear, it's important that you immediately locate the center portion, the important portion of that folded paper, and you hold it with your right thumb right on top of it. Then you tear it in half. Right straight down. It's a vertical tear, by the way. Oh, did I mention? No, I didn't. When you hold it with this, with your right thumb on that corner, the underlap is at the bottom. right thumb holding the goody center, underlap at the bottom. If it were turned over and positioned wrong, the underlap would be at the outside, and that's improper. You want the underlap to be down here at the bottom as you see it. I'll give you an over-the-shoulder view in just a minute, but I want to cover the basics of the tear. You tear it in a straight vertical tear. You can see still where the important corner is. It goes behind, toward you. Everything gets rotated 90 degrees, and you tear again. The tear this way now places the important corner. It's behind your left thumb, so all of the leftover pieces go in front of the packet. Now, the important corner, the one that has everything in it, is still here on the back of the packet. The neat thing is my particular technique allows you to separate the pieces and gesture for a moment, then bring all of the pieces together in your hand. When you do that, believe it or not, I now have the word Dick Van Dyke looking at me. If you cared to look at it at that point, it's right there in my hand. Now, of course, you don't look at it just now, but I wanted you to see how easy it is to get that information right side up and delivered to your hand. Now I'm going to give you the over-the-shoulder look so you can see all of the nitty-gritty, neat details involved in what I think, quite immodestly, is the best center tear handling on earth. First, once again, the fold. Remember, the right side comes over to not even with, but just short of the left edge, and you make your crease, leaving that underlap that I told you about. That's going to be really important later. Then you fold the paper in half away from you so that the underlap is on the outside of the fold. Do you see? It's still there on the outside of the fold. That's really important. Now here's a technique. You have to unfold the paper in the same relative position as when you started. That is, the underlap portion, the shorter, notice that this forms 4 squares, not quite quarters, because those on the right side of the paper are actually smaller than those on the left. The trick is to just keep this lower left-hand quadrant in the same relative position. So this folds over, this folds down, and when you unfold it, it's the same way, so that you don't lose your positioning. After you do this, a few hundred times, it'll become second nature to you. I'm kidding about the 100, probably 1,000. Anyway, when you fold thus and thus, you unfold likewise. This is when now, using your felt tip pen, drawing from the center of each of those folded quarters, you draw in your television screen, then the box, then the knobs, speaker, rabbit ears, and you're set to go. And once again, using the same name that Barbara used earlier. So there's the information. It's refolded by the participant, held up to the light, and handed back to you. Now remember, it's the prime corner, the goody corner right here. That's the one that has the information that we're going to tear out. Remember, you are to hold it so that your right thumb is on it with the underlap at the bottom. The only other way you can hold that center corner with your right thumb on it would be if the underlap were over to the side. That's wrong. You want the underlap to the bottom. Then you make a vertical tear right straight down through the paper. Once you've done that, the section containing the center goes to the rear, facing you, and the entire packet gets turned 90 degrees counterclockwise, or as they say near the Greenwich meridian, anti-clockwise. Here's the reason for that underlap. Well, first of all, the underlap helped you locate the center and the appropriate alignment. But this is where it gets really, really neat. I'm going to bring the camera in real close so you can see this. Because as you're about to make the tear, your thumb finds that underlap and slips underneath the top paper. It's very easy. You just draw your thumb back until it clicks over your thumb, and then slide your thumb inside. Now I'll show you this at full speed in a moment, but I'll do it slowly for now. After you've found that underlap, you bend the entire back piece of paper that is resting against your thumbnail up on a diagonal. That is, from the lower left to the upper right. Now you don't really crease it like this, but I'm doing that for illustrative purposes only. All right, and that's done all in one move, by the way. But you put your thumb under, bring it up, fold, and now you tear down through that torn up portion. All of those extra torn pieces go to the front of the packet, and now on the rear of the packet is the torn center. But here's the neat thing. It has sticking up from it, because of that fold, this little handle. And that little handle is what's going to enable you to do the wonderful miracle that comes next. Here's what happens. Now, I want you to step back a little bit for a slightly wider view. Watch. You slip your thumb underneath that little handle, and it goes into the first fold of that corner. It will actually just about, unless you're filming a video, stick right on your thumb. Well, don't do it. You'll hold on to it. All of the other pieces go away in the left hand. They're held in a similar fashion. From the front, this simply looks like you have a pinch of pieces in each hand. Then, as you bring them together, and this is the crucial part of the move, this is the only thing that I've been told by people to whom I've taught it before seems difficult. It's not really, but it just takes a second. So for a moment, I'll put down all of these other papers so you can see it just with the single center piece. You would bring over all of these papers, and also with those papers, grab this little handle. Then you move that handle toward the web of your thumb, keeping your right thumb stiff and moving your index finger out of the way. When that happens, your thumb, which is inserted in the paper, is actually going to umbrella open the slip that has the center information on it. Now, you're not going to look at it at this particular time. Don't be tempted. That was just for your teaching information. But here's the move. You grab that center portion and just move it over toward the web of your thumb and leave it there. It's now in your hand, ready to read later. Now let me show it with the pieces as well, because the pieces do add some degree of obfuscation and camouflage. The thumb just grabs that little handle behind all the other pieces. Grabs the handle, moves everything over. At the same time you move it over, this handle kind of twists this way, from here to here, as it goes over toward the web of the thumb. What that does is it positions the paper perfectly. If the pieces are behind that little handle, when you come over here and do the move, they likewise will end up behind the handle. And they'll be laying right in your hand behind the torn center. I'll show you that now at a little closer to a regular working speed. Remember, you've told your participant, I want you to take all these pieces, please, and cup them in your hands. Now you have the open center ready to look at. I'll give you the technique on exactly how to get away with looking at it without being noticed in the next segment of the tape. All right, so at speed, here's what we have. First, you tear right down through the center like that. Then tear the second piece, thusly, I say thusly, loosely. Then you separate the pieces in your hand, some over here, some over here. Bring them all together in your hand this way, and then say, cup the pieces in your hand. No, like this. That's when you get your peak. Did you see it? I want you now to come around, look over my shoulder one more time, and see just how diabolic this particular handling is. Come on. After you have all of the pieces in your hand, this is when the piece is open and ready to be read. It's right side up, printed, block letters, black, light paper, easy to read. And now the reason why we've gone to all of this trouble to set up this as it sits in your hand. The one shot you get at reading this is going to come in just a moment, when you illustrate to your participant that she is to cup her hands. Remember, you've taken the pieces. You say, I want you to take all of these pieces, please, and I want you to hold them in your hand. You've done the move. You've done the umbrella move. You're set to go. And cup your hands like this. Now, no matter, well, first of all, your hand, to get in position, normally when you cup your hands, you would cup your hands this way. Well, you can't do that because, of course, they'd see the work that's in here. And you're coming from this position anyway. So you cup your hand so that the front edge of your palm, I guess what the balls of the fingers, are right across the opening in your hand. That is not here, but way forward this way. This is important because when you extend your arms in a moment, because your left arm is wrapped forward around your right hand, in essence, your left arm is shorter. And as you extend your hands, it's going to come up. Now, the subtle misdirection for this came from Eugene Berger's voodoo, the ashes in the palm. Whenever someone is trying to comply with your request and you say, no, no, like this, the first thing their mind does is it disconnects from the process and they make an immediate visual comparison to see what they're doing wrong. So regardless of how she cups her hand, you say, no, no, like this. And that's when you extend your hands forward and the left hand raises just a little bit, and that's when you get your one good, solid look. Now, I want you to notice that right now you're looking over my shoulder. If I were to lean my head a little bit, you'll see it comes right into the frame. You're looking directly over my shoulder. And I'm opening my hands much wider than I would for a normal working conditions glimpse. Normally it would be just here. But for the television, I'm opening a little bit wider. But you'll notice if I turn just a little bit, you can't see anything that goes on here. Even from the other side, you're totally covered. If you're even a little bit paranoid about that, you can just drop your hand open this way. Now, I assure you that you can look down inside there and see it, okay? Even though in the television it's a little bit of a shadow, but still you can open this way if necessary and say no like this. Okay? But usually you look directly under your wrist. No, no, like this. When you say no, no, her eyes go from your hands to her hands back to your hands. No, no, like this. What's wrong with my hands? Oh. And then all that's necessary is to dump those pieces into her hand. When you do, if you like, you can go ahead and crumple and refold the pieces as you take them and give them one more tear before you drop them into her hand. That way there'll be nothing left for her to discover later. But I'll cover that when I talk about the psychological tips. Now go back and look at the presentation at the very front of the tape, and you'll see how all of these moves work together. What I haven't explained to you fully yet is the psychology behind this diabolic center tear. You see, it's really important that you get your participant's mind off of the fact that something's been written down. Did you notice after she had written down the name, glimpsed it, refolded it, and was holding on, I turned to her and I said, Barbara, I get a very definite masculine impression. Is that correct? Yes, she said.